Hello, dear friends. We are sincerely happy to greet you again. Today, we are going to talk to the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Greetings.
Igor Mikhailovich, in the previous video, we answered the question of why cosmic radiation, this impulse of life which affects our planet's core every 12,000 years, is not detected in any way and is not particularly reflected on the Earth's surface. And you gave an associative example of a fishing net behind which a ball is placed. If a handful of grain is thrown through this net towards the ball with sufficient force, what will happen? The ball will oscillate. And our dear viewers ask such a question. They ask to clarify. What was meant in this example by a fishing net and a ball?
Let's simplify it. Let's go back to this mental experiment of ours again, okay? In this case, the fishing net is associated with our atmosphere, with us, with the crust, with magma, with everything, while the ball is associated with the core. The grain is associated with this very energy that is coming from the outside, then basically passes through all material structures, including us, and collides with the core. I mean, it passes through us almost freely, only with rare exceptions, like grain thrown through a fishing net. Sometimes single grains can get somewhere on a node of this net and get reflected. But do you know what the paradox is?
What is it?
It is that we see how this energy gets into magnetic field lines, and it turns out that anomalies emerge, namely magnetic anomalies of the Earth.
In these nodal zones, right?
Absolutely right. Which actually contributes to various manifestations that we spoke about and will continue speaking about in relation to our Earth's magnetic field. Well, this is what we observe, in fact. Thus, the energy passes through everything, but it collides with our planet's core, meaning it interacts.
Then there is a question. Why is the core actually represented as a ball in this example? Let me explain why such a question arose. The thing is that in order to study the Earth's bowels, contemporary scientists wait for a powerful earthquake to occur. And by the way a seismic wave passes through the core, they basically understand how the bowels of our Earth are arranged. And the following question arises here. If seismic waves pass through the Earth's inner core, then why cannot some kind of a microscopic radiation pass through it, but instead it collides with the core of the planet?
It doesn't really collide, it interacts. This is point number one. Secondly, what they tell us, and some of those scientists believe in it themselves, that this seismic wave itself passes through the core, is actually a delusion, my friends. Yes, it passes through the outer core, but it cannot pass through the inner one. The very structure of the core is such that almost no wave can pass through it. This is really so. In other words, the density of its material is so high, and we should take into account that it is our planet's center of mass. It is the very energy of our planet. It is our planet's gravitational component. Well, it is everything. As a matter of fact, the core itself is our planet, and it is so dense that, yes, this energy interacts. It sort of charges the core, it gives additional power, and we see that during this process, the impact is so strong, with seemingly weak, obviously weak energy,
Yes, exactly.
which we do not notice, but it affects the core with such tremendous force that it even diverges, meaning there emerges an instability of the core. Imagine what forces, what kind of pressure affects the core itself, what kind of energy is contained in it. And imagine this gravitational component that holds the energy in the center of our Earth. Plus, there are masses, huge masses, that are pressing on the core itself with a huge load from the outside. I mean, they exert pressure on the outer core. The outer core presses on the inner core, and the pressure there is crazy. The temperatures are extreme. Yet nevertheless, there is even a deviation. In other words, this weak energy is not really weak, my friends. It's a very powerful energy. It is incomparable even with nuclear reactions. And let's say even more, it is precisely owing to this energy that nuclear reactions are caused, but that's a different matter. It's not the subject of our conversation today. But what actually happens? This very energy sort of charges, let's say, it adds strength and power to our core. Basically, it's a well-balanced process, and there shouldn't be any problems. Yes, there are some quakes, some deviations, but everything was damped by the environment. Overall, our planet tolerated this easily many times before our notorious anthropogenic factor came into play, friends. This is true. I mean, we have disrupted a lot of things, and now we see the consequences. Let's say the ocean is altered. While it is the basis, do you know why? Because when the ocean was alive and life was boiling and bubbling in it, there were fewer compounds that shouldn't be present in it. It had to absorb a very large amount of heat from the Earth's bowels, which is caused by entropy, resulting from the inflow of that energy. And it had to redirect it all into the atmosphere, whereas the atmosphere had to emit that energy into space. So it's kind of an air conditioner of sorts, but it was disrupted. The heat exchange was disrupted. Our ocean started heating up intensively from the bottom. It was not supposed to heat up. This heat exchange process was supposed to take place naturally, and basically, what is happening now shouldn't take place. Whereas everything that is happening now certainly points to what the guys shared at the forum, that there is a problem and it is going to escalate. The question is, why? It is still claimed that seismic waves pass through our core. In fact, these waves pass through the outer core, as if encircling the inner core. And because of that, scientists actually get distorted data and unfortunately do not pay attention to it. So they observe that our core is not round. It has some deformations. Somewhere, there are sort of swellings which, by the way, change from time to time. So they concluded that the core has an irregular shape, or bumps and swellings can form on it.
It melts somewhere.
It melts, yes.
Yes, exactly.
It's actually kind of a serious process. While in actual fact, it all depends on what point in the orbit our planet is in relation to the Sun at the moment of measurement. This is also very important. It is not taken into account, and this is wrong. Why? Because there will be deviations, because all the information they capture is the result of a seismic wave encircling and passing through the outer core, but without affecting the inner core. Therefore, we cannot have information about the inner core. The point is that, imagine, let's suppose that our planet collided with various asteroids, quite large in size, more than once, which should have affected the rotation of our planet anyway. Nevertheless, everything stabilized. That is, upon a powerful collision, the lithospheric plates should have either sharply slowed down or accelerated sharply in their rotation, thus dragging the entire planet along. Of course, well, our physics say so.
Yes, the stronger and heavier the object is.
Definitely, yes. Now let's look at the compensatory mechanism. The planet's core is much heavier than everything else. It's not only more massive, it is also the center of gravity and almost the center of mass in general, let's say. As a result, the core, which is stable, despite a considerable impact to the lithosphere, damped it all precisely by means of those pliant and liquid structures, almost liquid ones, those inside magma and all the rest. Thanks to this mechanism, I'll say it again, it's a unique mechanism. We are all here today and can communicate with each other. But at the same time, it is us who have almost destroyed our planet. As of today, this is true, friends. We have destroyed it. So far, there are no trends for improvement. However, there are signs of hope. Those are our friends, volunteers, who are not indifferent and do everything to build the creative society, where we can gather together with all the scientists of the world. Let's say, talk about our concept and vision. They can draw appropriate conclusions and find an approach to studying this energy. This is a completely new physics. This is a different kind of energy, the one that we didn't know before, but we see its manifestations, both on our planet and on others. We see its impact on these nodes on the fishing net, so to say, how it all interacts, and what happens. This is what is known. In other words, we need to solve a fairly straightforward equation, so to say, with only a few unknown variables, you see? That also means that we can find the answer.
Igor Mikhailovich, you've said that the core is the center of gravity.
Definitely.
The point is that some scientific minds say, does gravity exist at all? Maybe we should abandon such a concept as gravity forces and be guided only by centrifugal forces, especially in outer space.
You know, this sounds very funny, in fact. Although, I want to tell you the following. Modern science, including physics, is more of a philosophical section. Why? Because it is possible to prove and disprove anything. In fact, this is true, friends. The only thing that is accurate is mathematics. Here, if there is one, then it is one. If 1 plus 1, then it is 2. You see? Somehow you cannot twist that, although they are also trying to manipulate it. So, going back to our gravity and centrifugal forces have their relevance only in a gravitational field. If we remove the gravitational component, centrifugal forces cease to exist. We have the so-called gravitational field everywhere across the universe, which allows the entire material world to interact with each other. A simple example. On your beautiful hairstyle, there are particles on the tip of your hair. So, just for you to know, the tip of your hair is interacting right now with the most distant galaxy. And not just with the most distant galaxy, but with every grain of sand in that galaxy. Moreover, with all the galaxies. And now, I will also say something seditious, excuse me, but this is true. So, the tip of your hair contains all the information about any particle in the farthest galaxy and its current state. Why? Because any part of a hologram contains information about the whole hologram. If we proceed from the laws of fractals, then this is true. If we proceed from the laws of gravitational interaction, the exchange of information, then this is true. You see how it all turns out? Can we prove it? Well, that's difficult. Can we refute it? With the help of modern physics, the one we use, it is easy. It can be refuted. But, and here, we come to the quantum world, which exactly confirms what I said. But it is complex. And those laws which are fundamental and indisputable for us, they absolutely do not work at the level of the quantum world. Well, this is, let's say, the funniest thing in this situation. Why? Because the laws of the quantum world absolutely do not work beyond the quantum limit, where everything originates. In actual fact, everything does not originate beyond the quantum limit. But if we go deeper into this process of reduction, that's where everything material originates. If we examine it, then the smaller the structures are, the more complex the physics is. And it is completely different. The larger the structures, the simpler the physics. We have quite complex physics so far. However, if we look at the planets and their interaction, everything is much simpler. If we look at the interaction of galaxies, everything is simple in general. That is, the larger the objects, the simpler the physics. But that very interaction between galaxies is caused by physical processes that occur beyond the quantum limit. And that's where it all begins.
This is very interesting and very impressive, Igor Mikhailovich.
Well, it's interesting, but we cannot peep in there. You see, a lot of questions will arise, and consciousness immediately says, you can talk a lot, recount various hypotheses, and voice theories, but if they are not confirmed, all this is at the level of a fairy tale. Here's a simple example. Every 12,000 years, we are exposed to such an attack of this energy,
Right.
this very impulse of life. What does it do? It enhances the potential, no more and no less. To put it simply, what predominates is what intensifies. Life is sort of added, right? And just look, based on our physics, and many people will confirm this. Well, not theorists, but really those who studied physics. Based on all the laws, our sun should have already run out a long time ago.
Yes, exactly.
Simply run out, right? Well, it's clear. When it runs out, it expands. So in fact, we would have no longer existed. But the sun is still there and continues to give energy. It gives off so much energy that with such a small volume, it should have been over long ago. Thus, physicists have been wondering, for many years already, how is it refueled? Where and why? And what kind of a process is that? Now let's examine the sun itself too. What we see is not the sun. It is the visible to us. I would compare it to our atmosphere. And those prominences, huge ejections, those coronal glows, all these are the upper layers of the atmosphere. Then it all goes deeper. It's a denser medium where nuclear reactions actually take place, and it is all transferred to the upper layers. We go deeper, and what do we find in the sun itself? A solid core. Yes, it is certainly huge. It is almost the size of our planet. Almost. Well, far from that size yet. If we imagine the size of our sun and the size of our planet compared to it, while the sun's core is slightly smaller than our planet, it would seem these are incomparable things. But the mass and the gravity force of the sun's core itself is impressive. Really impressive. So every 12,000 years, that very recharge takes place, including that of the sun. Why? Because similar processes occur in our planet and in almost all the planets of our solar system, just like in other star systems everywhere.
So this fuel will be enough for another 12,000 years of stable operation?
Well, with a reserve. But yes, for stable function of everything living.
By 12,000 years.
Yet again, it all still wears out, and it all collapses anyway. But you know, it's like a car. We fill it up and drive. When we run out of gasoline, we can stop. We can stop, but we fill up the gasoline and keep driving. However, the car will wear out anyway, and someday it will crumble. In other words, there is nothing everlasting, but the fact that it can serve many, many thousands of miles, enabling us to travel and can function for a long time, is a fact. In the same way, our Earth can function for millions of years more, and the Sun for billions of years. This is also a fact. Now going back to your question, why 12,000 years?
Not 17, not 15,
Right.
and not 9,000 years.
And here, you know, we are again touching upon seditious matters. Why? Because, let me begin in a roundabout way. There is a fact which has already been studied and confirmed. It's just that contemporary science does not take it seriously and kind of keeps politely silent, or tries to refute it, but it doesn't quite succeed in refuting it. Those artifacts that remain from past civilizations only indicate that there were civilizations much more developed than our civilization is now. Why? We cannot reproduce what was built at that time in terms of megaliths, and not only those, but also other artifacts, which we cannot make by means of modern science. We cannot grind or carve that way. We have no such tool, and not even an understanding of how this was done, which suggests that there were more developed, more advanced civilizations who knew and understood more. They left us a legacy of understanding regarding a certain interval of time, which from time immemorial has been called a lot. This is the very basic, fundamental number of a certain time interval, which, according to legends, exists, let's say, in our entire universe.
In the whole civilized world.
Yes, in the whole civilized world. Right.
Right.
I agree with you.
Igor Mikhailovich, you also mentioned that this impulse of life, this energy amplifies whatever predominates.
Definitely.
Does this only apply to macro objects, or does it also apply to us people?
No, it applies to everything, including us. If we were a civilization, we would have a chance to move one step further now. You see, that is to ascend. If we were at the first level of development, we would now be able to make a leap to the second level, okay? I mean, it's a huge chance for us. But due to the fact that we are a community, we are scattered and fragmented, all this is amplified in each of us. Why? Because in the beginning, when giving explanations, I said that due to entropy, the energy comes out here, to us. And this energy actually affects us. Why? It has another characteristic. It affects many people and strengthens what is predominant. Just look, over this period of time, as soon as it started to manifest.
Activeness.
Yes, this very activeness. The world has begun to change drastically, and the more it is manifested, the more, frankly speaking, the world goes mad.
Yes, it's true.
Everyone notices that. What else is important? If each of us looks inside ourselves, we notice that we feel and understand the finiteness of time. Everyone understands that the world is doomed. But on the other hand, we also realize that there is a chance. Not because our geopolitical situation is so complicated, or the climate has gained such momentum that everyone is already getting depressed. No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the mental process. I'm talking about perception through feelings, what everyone feels. Let's call it at the subconscious level or at the level of intuition, as you please, friends. I understand not everyone has the knowledge and not everyone has worked on themselves to be able to perceive it and call things by their proper names, but almost everyone feels that. What is more, everyone understands that it is time to change everything. Politicians start saying that the consumerist format has become obsolete, that we need to radically change everything. Everyone knows this, and everyone understands this. However, just the opposite is being done. Everyone understands that we need to unite. This point is also important. We will now talk about why we all need to unite. However, we continue to be divided. It doesn't matter for what reasons, who is right and who is wrong. You see, it's all secondary. What matters is the basis of the process itself. If despite everything, we are separating, it means we want that. It means we are subconsciously ready for it. Hence, we are being manipulated. We are acting the way we desire. But if we united, a different process would take place. Here, we are a community. Utter negativity prevails in us. It's true. All of us are very cruel. We are not quite humane.
Intolerant.
Absolutely. And egocentric. We treat the world with an attitude of I need. And if I take care of somebody, I take care of myself. Right?
The center of the world, here in everyone.
The center of the world. And many perceive themselves as the center of the world. If they just sit down, relax, and ponder, without observing their thoughts, but just try to go deeper into themselves. People who do not have knowledge of practices, I'm saying it again, because those who perform meditative, spiritual, or prayer practices will have a different effect. For ordinary people, they will feel that the world revolves around them. They don't care about everyone around them. That's the point. Yes, they care about those on whom they depend or with whom they are comfortable. It's like a certain attraction. There's a gravitational interaction in this case, let's say based on personal interest, but nothing more.
The distance is close.
Of course.
There is interaction.
Do they have a desire to help other people? Of course not. Why? Because I don't know them. Why do I need them? After all, no one helps me. You see, there is such reasoning. This leads to the fact that we are still being skillfully manipulated. Again, all this is not someone's desire, but it's a systemic phenomenon. It is cyclicity. We are divided everywhere, even in small groups. Again, let's see how people behave, who do not perform spiritual practices, who are not on the spiritual path. Even in small groups, after a while, they certainly begin to quarrel over trifles because of selfishness, because of these negative factors that predominate in a modern human. They begin to be divided into even smaller groups of small groups. This all leads to a division among us as people.
This is entropy, it's distraction.
Absolutely right. Yes, we destroy ourselves. But this is scary because we destroy our unity as well. Our unity, if we take, again, let's take such a metaphysical manifestation, sort of an egregore, just to make it clear. Friends, this universal mind exists in all animals. We humans are dual. There is a part of an angel in us, and there is a part of the devil, meaning a part of the animal world. In any case, we should have two common egregores, while we don't have a single common one. Let's say we destroy ourselves, become disunited, and everything goes down the drain. Are we able to resist anything and do anything? No. What will this energy intensify? Only additional destruction, all our animal qualities, and an attempt to save oneself. It will not awaken anything else. But if we change, if we no longer live based on the denial of everything living, but on the contrary, based on love, on sustenance of all living things, then this energy already acts in a completely different way. It additionally gives us strength. It's like an additional, kind of a stimulant. If we unite, well, let's say a miracle happens, and all of the people in the world decide to build the creative society and unite. What will happen? A single egregore will be formed, right?
Especially during such a period.
Right. Precisely during this period. It is during this period that civilizations are generated, when people find in themselves not an animal, lying, or selfish part, not this little greedy, mean child, but find in themselves an adult, responsible person who loves the entire world and all people, and aspires to creation and unification. That's when these disparate communities, despite all the strife, despite everything, unite and become one united civilization. Everything changes completely. In this case, this impetus, exactly this impulse of life, so to say, can play a very positive role. And everything can accelerate much faster. Accelerate in what sense? In that very intellectual one. After all, a single egregore affects people in a completely different way. Let's give a simple example. 7 people have gathered. If they are just people from the street, sort of to drink a beer, to chat about nothing, then during a longer conversation, they will definitely quarrel. 2 people will certainly create a confrontation of the majority against the minority. They will start betraying, manipulating, and eventually robbing each other. Isn't that so, friends? It is. Moreover, this happens regardless of their level of intelligence and humaneness. But if people with a spiritual bias have gathered, or with a positive intention, with a constructive solution, for example, of building the creative society, then what will these 7 people come to? It will be a formation of a single egregore in a small group, and their intellectual capabilities will increase dramatically. That's true, after all. But will these capabilities be able to increase among ordinary people who are not united by this goal, among egocentric people? No, that's the answer.
Everything starts small with this information that is inside every person, which vector he chooses, that is, towards creation and unification.
Tatiana, everything starts simply with love for each other. So friends, let's just love each other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, friends. Peace be with you.